So. Okay, we're live. Welcome, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey. And we're broadcasting on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley.
Yes, we are.
We're actually broadcasting from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. It's
yes, we are.
101.7 FM from CIVL. And Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show, and every week we are here at 7 o'clock Pacific time to talk about metaphysics and spirituality. And
yes, we are.
Yeah, we live stream from our Facebook group, which is the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group. And we also live stream from my YouTube channel.
Yes, we do.
And so if you want to catch us live and you want to join in the chat room and actually join in the discussion, then you can join either the YouTube channel or the Facebook group. Otherwise, catch us on CIVL and on the podcast. So every week, listeners, we choose a different topic to talk about under the umbrella of metaphysics and spirituality. And tonight is no exception to that. We put out a request to our listeners to say, what do you want us to talk about tonight? And I got quite a few responses this week.
Any good ones?
Yes. 3 people who wanted to talk about spirit guides.
Oh, I like that.
And we had one lady who wants to talk about entities. And then 2 people who wanted to talk about doubting your intuition. And another person wanted to talk about letting go. So maybe I could weave it together into a subject which is something like
letting go of your spirit guides.
How not to doubt your spirit guides, how to be discerning when it comes to your spirit guides, so you're not getting confused between non-benevolent beings and benevolent beings. So how can you trust your intuition when it comes to your spirit guides? What do you think?
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about spirit guides. And, you know, it's funny. I had a session with a lady today, and she purchased my Akashic Adventure on spirit guides. So I have these workshops called Akashic Adventures, and there's 5 of them. One of them relates to soulmates, which is kind of like a relationship one. One of them relates to past lives, in between lives, spirit guides, and I can't remember what the other one was. Anyway, she purchased it and she'd gone through the meditations. Each of them have 3 30-minute meditations. And she said, you know, I had some luck doing some of the things, but I really still couldn't see my spirit guide. So live in the session, I said, well, okay, let's do an exercise right now for you to meet your spirit guide. So we did the exercise and I said, do you see your spirit guide? And she said, no, 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 no. So then I kept going with a different exercise. And eventually she said, well, Jesus keeps popping up. And all the way through, Jesus has been going, hello, hello, I'm here, I'm your guide. And she was ignoring him because she thought, no, that can't be my guide. That's just some interference. How can that possibly be?
That's interesting.
But it's a really good illustration of what happens all the time to people and how people doubt their intuition, because her intuition was functioning. Her clairvoyance was functioning. She was seeing him. She was literally seeing him with her clairvoyance. he was communicating to her. He was showing himself, in different situations as a way of communicating to her. And her doubt in her mind said, no, that's not happening. That's not real. How can that be? And so, I mean, part of it really is to validate and recognize your intuition, and to learn how to catch yourself when you're doubting like that. So it's more or less the first thing that you tune into is real, and then your intellect is catching on and saying, no, that's not right. Okay, so we're weaving these two concepts together about spirit guides and how not to doubt your intuition. And doubt, really, it's caused by the intellect. It's caused by the human linear mind. So your intellect is part of your brain. It is something that helps you to navigate three-dimensional reality, physical reality. The spirit world is multidimensional. And so, the intellect isn't really capable of comprehending what comes through with respect to your psychic abilities, right? Because they don't compute. They're not the same as what you experience with your physical senses. So one of the main things that we need to do in order to let go of self-doubt and believe in our psychic abilities is to learn how to bypass the intellect. Learn how to let go of the dominance of the intellect. And that really, it comes with practice, really, more than anything. But I'm going to talk about a technique that helps with both of these things that we're talking about today. One is being able to tune into your spirit guides, and two is being able to let go of doubt.
What do I win if I can guess what it is?
I actually bet you don't guess what it is.
No?
Go on, go ahead and guess.
Okay.
Go on.
Meditation, grounding. No?
Well, okay, yeah, partly right. Yes, meditation. And of course, yes, grounding is helpful. But I was actually going to talk about centering today. But I can talk about all of those things. So, yes, meditation, Corey, that's a good one. Meditation helps you turn within and quiet the mind and quiet the aspects of the physical system to some degree. So turn inward, tune into your inner being. And grounding is a meditation technique that helps you to anchor your consciousness in your physical body. And it also gives you a way of releasing energy. And you can release any energy down the grounding. So you can release doubt down the grounding. So they're all great suggestions. But I'm going to make one additional thing, which is to talk about centering. Now, what is centering? Centering is a meditation technique where you place your conscious awareness in the center of your head, in your third eye, in one of the more ancient parts of your brain. As you place your conscious awareness in that central part of your brain, you begin to stimulate your clairvoyance so that you can see as spirit. And in cultivating your clairvoyance, one of the things you might be able to see is your spirit guides, because it enables you to see energy, and they are energy beings. But this also helps you to let go of doubt. How does it help you to let go of doubt? Well, you're putting your conscious awareness in the center of your head, in the center of your brain. So that means you are not putting your conscious awareness in the frontal lobes of your brain. So most people, when they're thinking, their energy is in the frontal lobes of their brain. And that's unless you've had a brain injury, really. You know, that most of us, we're doing the thinking in this, the frontal lobes. And so if you move your conscious awareness back from the frontal lobes into that central portion of the brain where the third eye is, you will become the neutral observer of your thoughts. You will be apart from your intellectual mind, and you will be sitting in a seat of the soul, which gives you a direct connection to your clairvoyance and to be able to see as spirit. So I've actually given you the answer to both of those subjects that people suggested. How do I stop doubting? Bypass the intellect. How do I bypass the intellect? Seat your consciousness in the center of your head and keep it there. And as you sit in the center of your head, look out through your sixth chakra. Okay. How do I connect with my spirit guides? One of the ways is by centering and using your clairvoyance in order to see as spirit and in order to tune into the guides, because they are energy beings. There, that's it. That's the show.
I'll go home now.
So I'm trying to touch on all the people who asked questions this week. There was another lady who asked about entities and whether she was being successful at protecting herself from negative entities. And so again, being centered is helpful for that condition as well. Because number one, if you're centered, you're able to see for yourself what's going on in your energy field. And you are, I was going to say something else about that. Give me a moment. Oh, yes. Another common thing that happens to people when they are starting to communicate with spirit guides is, how do I know that it's a guide that I can trust? And how do I know that it really is my guide and it isn't some pretender being that's pretending to be my guide but really isn't a benevolent one? And that's a really good question, because there definitely are tricksters out there. And so a couple of tips. One is, you can tell from the vibration of the being. So if you're centered and you're using your clairvoyance and you can see the energy, you can see the vibrational frequency and the difference. Because a benevolent being is going to have a high vibrational frequency, and an entity that's not so benevolent is going to have a lower vibrational frequency. There is another thing that you can do, and that is basically to repeatedly ask them if they are in alignment with God or source energy, and if they serve the light. Are you in alignment with source energy, and do you serve the light? Are you in alignment with source energy? And after about 3 times of asking that, if that being is not in alignment with God, the energy is going to dissipate and it's going to disappear. And that's another way that you're going to know, okay, no, that wasn't really my guide. So the people who posted that they wanted me to talk about spirit guides, they just said spirit guides. So if you're listening and if you're in the chat box, what do you want to know about spirit guides? What do you really want to know about spirit guides? So post in the chat and let me know what it is that you'd like me to tell you, because there's a lot that we could tell you about spirit guides.
I have a question.
Great. What's your question?
So what's the most unusual spirit guide that's shown up in your life? Or what you would consider the most unusual?
Thing is, I don't consider anything unusual at this point. But I guess if I describe some of my spirit guides, other people might find them unusual. I have a fantastic healing guide at the moment. And the healing guide is kind of a galactic consciousness, and he works with light technology. So he sort of shows up dressed a bit like, I don't know, like he's a crew member of a starship or something. And he has all of these amazing energy tools. I don't know, if you just imagine the most fantastic technology that hasn't been invented yet that works with light. So that's one of my guides. I also, here's the thing. Every day I'm working with like many different beings, different ascended masters. So last week there was some experiences with Kuan Yin. And I had an experience where she came to help me with something, and her energy, she's the bodhisattva of compassion. Her energy was huge, like a mountain. And in her presence, what she basically was showing me as I was like a little chick or a little baby. Because in comparison to Kuan Yin, she was just this magnificent being. What else? Yeah, so I mean, I could give you a list, but really, every day there's different. Like today, there was a lady I was working with. I was saying earlier, and Jesus was the one that was coming forward to work with us.
I guess my question is more. It's like that lady that with Jesus. I guess you can never discount anybody that shows up, or anything, any archetype or anything that comes by. I have a question from Tammy, and Tammy says, I mostly she says, how do you know who your spirit guides are? She says, I mostly connect to my relatives that have passed as my guides.
Yeah. So definitely one category of energy being that can serve as guides are our ancestors and our relatives. But I would say that there are many types of beings that are available to all of us. So if you're in the human race, then this being is available for you to connect with. So for example, the angels. And there are an infinite number of angels, but there are particular ones that tend to be very present serving humanity. And again, too many to list. But if you went to that Akashic Adventure on Spirit Guides that I was talking about earlier, I think that there is a list included with that mini course of what all the different potential guides. So angels, ascended masters. So Jesus would be an ascended master, Buddha, Muhammad, and many other beings. Those beings are all here to help all of us. And they are at a stage of evolution where they can help all of us simultaneously. So we've reached that time where we have to go for a break. And so we're going to do that. We're going to take a break and we'll be back soon.
That's wonderful. Dr. Leslie, could you adjust your camera just a little bit? We're only getting just a little portion of your face.
Are you watching me on Facebook or Zoom?
Zoom.
Yeah. The problem is if I adjust the camera from Zoom, well, how's that
There
better?
you go. That was almost better. Oh,
Okay.
that's better. Thank you. And we'll go back now.
Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
That's me. I always like to make sure everybody knows that's me.
Yes. I don't know what I was going to say after that, Corey.
That's okay. I have a question for you anyway, from Tina Brister. I can hear my guides, but I can't see them. Is there something? Oh, I'm sorry. I asked you. Did I ask you Tammy's question? Yes, I asked you Tammy's.
Yeah, and I hadn't finished answering it, but ask me the next one and I'll go back to Tammy's.
Okay. I can hear my guides, but I can't see them. Is there something I need to do to see them? Is it important to be able to see them?
So so I don't know whether you just tuned in, Tina, but I was explaining how to see them in the first part of the show. And the trick to seeing them is to place your conscious awareness in the center of your head. Because what that does is it seats your consciousness in your third eye, and it puts you looking straight out through your sixth chakra. Most people are messing around in their intellect, in the frontal lobes of their brain, and all that will cause you to doubt your intuition, and it will cause you to believe that you are imagining it. Now, is it important that you see them? You know, I would never say that your intuition or your psychic abilities has to look exactly like this or exactly like that. And so there are plenty of people who are very psychic who don't see, who don't really see. So they're operating more from a knowingness or from their clairaudience, which is what you're talking about, which is being able to hear them. I'm very strong on the clairvoyance, and I personally don't believe that there's anyone who cannot develop their clairvoyance. I've even known a blind woman who never saw in her life that learned to see through her clairvoyance. And one of the reasons why I really like the clairvoyance to be there as well as the other abilities is it gives you neutrality. So if you learn to operate from the center of your head, you have neutrality. And if you're being a psychic reader, you need your neutrality. You need to be in a place of discernment and non-judgment. And being in the center of your head puts you in the place of discernment and non-judgment. So while it's not necessary for you to receive psychic messages or communicate with your guides to have your clairvoyance, I personally think it's a good idea to develop it because of the neutrality component. No other chakra gives you the level of neutrality that your sixth chakra gives you. So I hope that answers your question. So what I would say to you is if it isn't happening for you, don't worry about it. Focus on what is happening to you. But at some point, you know, that might be something that you might want to investigate further. And sometimes all it takes is people, I've had lots of people come to me where they've said, I'm not seeing, or they're in my class and they're not seeing. And usually what happens is we just sit down for like 20 minutes or less, and we look at how they're blocked in their clairvoyance. And, you know, usually it's a number of things. It could be past lifetimes where this is quite common, where you've been a seer and you have been punished for your ability. Because many times in history, those that could see, they were in demand, you know, people wanted to use them. But if you didn't give them the answer that you were looking for, then you'd be punished for that. Or if you were alive in a time when, you know, somebody with those abilities was feared, then you might be put in jail, tortured, or even killed because of it. And so oftentimes people have got a karmic block on their sixth chakra that's stopping them from seeing, because they're thinking, you know, because it says, well, if I see, what are the consequences of me seeing going to be? Maybe I'll be punished for it. And, you know, or you know, growing up as a kid, they weren't validated. If they saw things that weren't really there, then the adults will say, oh, that's your imagination. It's not real. You'll grow out of it. You know, and then you sort of go to school and get validated for your intellect. And I've also seen cases where other people have put energy on someone's sixth chakra because they don't want to be seen by them. So there's various things that can be blocking it. So part of it is getting used to what is it like when I'm using my sixth chakra. And part of it is what's in the way of me using my sixth chakra. So also, I want to finish off on Tammy's question, because really we only got so far as saying, yeah, ancestors, your ancestors can be guides. There are also ascended beings, angels, and then your own spirit guides. And your own spirit guides can be beings that you have known in past lives. They can be beings that you even, like, for example, my healing guide that you know from even another world. They can be aspects, projections of your own higher consciousness. Because don't forget, you're multidimensional and your soul creates multiple lifetimes. And so it's also possible for your soul to be projecting the idea of a spirit guide in different guises. And it's actually you. It's a future version of you or a higher version of you that you're communicating with that seems to be something that's separate from you. Other beings that can be guides for us, the Devic kingdom, the nature spirits, animal totems. Somebody wanted us to talk about animal totems. So all animals have a spirit and an intrinsic characteristics, and when they show up in our lives or in our dreams, if we look at those characteristics of that animal, that can teach us something about ourselves. So there's such an enormous diversity and plethora of spirit guides. And the question was, how do I know who are my spirit guides? So there may be some that are assigned to you for life. There may be some that cycle in for a time and then leave because they're just with you when there is a kind of parallel track between what you're learning about and how they're developing themselves. Give me a second because I keep losing things. You must all be interested in what I'm saying because the energy's coming in my head and popping out of my head. I had a third thing I wanted to say about your personal spirit guides. Oh yes, yeah, the idea that they are, though, like it's fated, it's like a foregone conclusion. I have 3 guides and they are my guides, and it really isn't. I hire guides all the time. I bring in new guides all the time. If I'm teaching a class, I hire a guide to help every student in that class. You know, if I need help managing the energy in my house, I hire guides who like to manage energy in the house.
Okay, what do you pay them?
They just do it for the love and the fun. You know, you can have a different guide for healing, for manifestation, for going shopping and helping you find bargains if you want. And so you can have, and so there's an abundance of support in the spirit, and you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to 1 or 2. I feel like I'm working with many all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I think people do have put guides into a box quite a bit, and I think one of the boxes that a lot of people put guides into is the box of guardian angel.
Yeah, and we certainly do all have a guardian angel.
Mm-hmm. Tina says, "Thank you for your response. I'm seen many things, images, past lives, future scenarios, but I just don't see my guides." Well, you're reaping the benefits, Tina, so don't worry too much about that, I would think. And Tammy says, "My daughter literally interrupted me as you were answering my question."
Well, she's a little guide, isn't she? And that's that, you know, thank you for that, because we probably should mention other humans can be your guides. And often we don't see it that way, do we? If somebody shows up in our life and they are irritating us, that doesn't feel like a guide. But if you use that situation as a learning opportunity and a healing opportunity, it can offer guidance to you, you know? And so if somebody shows up in your life and you're really resisting that person, or you're really judging that person, and then you look inside yourself and say, why am I resisting them? Why am I judging them? It's usually because they're mirroring something about you back at you. And so if you can find that thing and heal that thing and clear it, you'll find that person doesn't irritate you anymore. And that was some guidance that sort of inadvertently came from another human. So we can all be guides for each other in
that's
different
good.
ways.
That's lovely. Callie says, I did a meditation for spirit guide and saw a buck and an ancient looking woman with deep wrinkles like a tree. Though she had black hair and an orange gown, crazy boreal forest in the back.
Cool. That's cool. That's excellent. And I'll mention again, I've got this very inexpensive workshop that is available on my website. There's a tab that says, it's probably under courses, and it says Akashic Adventures. And it's these 2-hour workshops that have meditations, and there's one that's on spirit guides, and there's a meditation to help you meet an angel, another meditation to help you meet one of your spirit guides, and another one to help you meet an animal totem. And they last about 30 minutes each, and they just, you know, give you an experience. If you're having difficulty having an experience, they'll give you an experience of connecting with different beings. And you can actually do the meditations over and over again and meet a different guide each time you do it as well. Okay, any more questions about guides?
I don't think you touched on Tammy's question, on Callie's question much.
Was it a question?
Well, it was a comment.
She was just telling us what her experience was.
Yeah, what do you have to say about that?
About her seeing an ancient woman and with a boreal forest behind and a buck.
Yeah.
Great. That's great. I don't know what else there is to say about it, Corey. Ask Kelly if she has a question about it.
No, she's just making a comment. I'll put the, by the way, I'll put the link for the Akashic Adventures so people can see it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting though. I've had, Lori says, I have an unrelated question about other people's energy in our space.
Okay, and Laurie, you were one of the ones that asked me to talk about guides. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to ask a question about guides as well. So other people's energy in your space. And so what do you want to know about other people's energy in your space? And while you're writing that, I'm going to go to the other lady, Bronwyn, who wanted to talk about beings and entities and what are they and how do they attach themselves to us. Wanted to know if I could give her a quick look to see how well she was protecting herself from negative beings. So I think I'll talk about that a little bit. So what are negative entities? Because you can think of the whole spirit world, like there's beings, black, white, all shades of in between, you know, from the highest vibration to lower vibration beings that have an even lower vibration than you, you know, who are kind of parasitic beings. And so how do they attach themselves to us? If we have some kind of vulnerability that they can manipulate us on, we're in fear, we feel unworthy, lots of different, if whatever low vibration things are within your energetic space could be a vulnerability, for example, for them to attach to. And they can attach, there are various ways that they can attach, sometimes through an energy cord, sometimes, other ways. How to remove them and keep yourself protected, that's a kind of a longer discussion, but I mean, the basic principle of it would be to continue healing yourself, to continue meditating, continue working with energy. I mean, I have courses that specifically teach you these things, and it's not really possible for me to teach them to you in a 5-minute answer of a question. But if you're meditating, Bronwyn, and there are some meditation techniques you can get for free on my website, like grounding. If you can use your grounding cord to release their energy. And have you been successful at protecting yourself? Let's take a look. Well, what comes up is that for the most part, yes. And it looks to me like the foreign energy that you're dealing with is foreign energy from a person. So I'm seeing in the lower 3 chakras that there's some foreign energy. It doesn't look like what we might call a being or an entity. It looks like a person. So it's time to go for another break. We'll be back shortly.
Sounds good to me.
Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. We have a kind of a mishmash of subjects today, but it's in the realm of spirit, of energy beings, spirit guides, entities, and how to trust your intuition about those things. How to be discerning and how to trust your intuition. So it's that time of the show where it's great when the listeners write some questions in.
Okay, well, we have Lori just made a comment and has a question as well. She says, just to clarify my reading with you yesterday, the sad and turmoil feelings is how much me, the guy from the past, and my father. So you should understand that. We don't need to.
So
Yeah, and she also says, yeah, sorry to interrupt there. Yes, yay, can we ask guides yes or no questions?
Sure. Okay. So what percentage of the sadness that's in your energy field is your own sadness? I'm getting about 50%. And the other people's sadness, I guess, wouldn't be able to stick unless there was some of your sadness in there. So I'm getting about 50% is yours. And in terms of the guy from the past versus your father, I would just say 50% is kind of like that male archetype, whatever your challenges with men are, that's the sadness, whether it's projected as the guy from the past or whether it's projected as your father. Can you ask guides yes, no questions? You can. I suppose you can. But a whole lot more than that. You can get so much more information from your guides. Actually, that brings me to another comment that I wanted to make about guides, and that's just a sort of a principle of working with guides that I abide by and I like to teach others about is never give up your seniority to a guide. You are a sovereign being within your own energy field. This body that you have, this energy field around you, it's your personal private universe, and you are the God of that universe. So what a lot of people do is they're enamored with guides, right? And then they give away all of their power over to the guides, and they feel like they know nothing and they need the guide to be the one that tells them. Or even there are certain psychic readers, and what they're doing is they're channeling a guide, right, rather than themselves. So the power is coming from the guide. But you're all magnificent within yourselves. So never give up your seniority to a guide. And so an analogy I like to use is like, think about either you're the God of your own universe, or you're the CEO and your life is your business. And the guides are kind of employees that you're hiring to assist you in the running of your life. And that way you will always stay in charge. So you can invite a guide in, you can dismiss the guide, you can break a contract with a guide, you can say, I feel like I've evolved beyond this guide and don't want to work with them anymore. And that can happen. There can be guides that, stick around through a certain number of lifetimes, and then we evolve faster than that guide does. And then it's time to say goodbye. It's time to break that contract and, work with other beings that are a match for you. So don't give up seniority to your guides. And so, and always cultivate your own direct connection with source energy. So as to Laurie's question, can you ask guides yes, no questions? Yes, but it's really easy to ask yourself yes, no questions.
It's true.
Yeah, so, but yeah, and I'm really, in a way, it's like, it's important. And that, we were talking about self-doubt, weren't we? And how important it is for you to trust yourself and trust your own intuition. And so if you're asking a yes, no question to a guide, also ask, how much am I really trusting my own intuition here?
We used to do the with yes no questions. We used to do truth response things like this, and you ask yourself the question, should I do such and such, and if your fingers lock, the
You'll have
answer
to
is
explain on the radio what you're doing, Corey, because they
oh
can't.
yes, that's true. Well, you're pulling if you make circles out of your thumb and forefinger and interlock them, and then you just pull on them, if they release, it's a no. It's a not true answer. It's a false. If they hold fast, then it is a true answer. The other thing you can do is you can lean. Also, there was one that you stand and you ask yourself the question. You can lean forward, which would give you a true answer. Leaning backwards would give you a false answer. Whatever you depict them to be, and your body would react to your intuition. It would interlock with your intuition.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
very
And
interesting
so
things you
the
could do.
body's got an innate kind of intuitive sense. So you're talking about sort of kinesiology and those type of things. So for sure.
Yeah, but that it works hand in hand with your intuition, of course. Your
Yeah,
intuition,
it is part of your intuition.
yeah, it works. So Laurie wants to know male archetypes. Could you explain more?
Okay, I can.
Anyway, just sorry. If anybody who wants to see the finger locking thing, the video will be on the post, and you can just go and click the video, and
Yeah.
you can see it there.
Yeah, and I'll also say that, there's different techniques that you can use with your clairvoyance to answer a yes, no question. So a very simple one that I use is, imagine that there's a gold sphere or a sphere of light, and you're holding up two hands. If it lands in your left hand, the answer is no. If it lands in your right hand, the answer is yes. So you ask a question of this gold sphere, and depending on where it lands, you get yes or no. Male archetypes. Expanding on what Laurie was asking about. Because I have to answer that in the context of what I was meaning for you, Laurie, rather than what is a male archetype. Corey could answer the question, what is a male? How about you answer the question, what is a male archetype? And then I'll answer it from the perspective of Laurie's particular question.
Nothing like putting me on the spot, Dr. Leslie.
Well, you're into archetypes.
Yeah. Well, male archetypes, I guess, are in my limited understanding. Yeah. First of all, let's look at archetypes. Archetypes are deeper, stronger creatures or spirits that come to visit, or in essence more known in to you. And male archetypes are I guess would be, I've never thought of that, but more so those archetypes who have a stronger male presence than, because spirit generally isn't male or female, but will represent themselves as male or female. So a stronger male archetype will come to see you. And sometimes we need to have that specific sexuality, or not sexuality, but the gender, um, be present for some reason within us. Like for myself, if I ask a question about life in as a male, as a male individual, I'll have a male archetype come to me. I've had several different ones. I have really weird. I get weird spirit guides. One of my favorite spirit guides is Big Bird from Sesame Street. Leslie always laughs at that one. And then there's the pirate. I got a pirate, and that's the Johnny Depp pirate. I've got Robin Hood, which is the Errol Flynn, one of the original. I think it was the original Robin Hood from the movies way back in the 50s or 40s, and things like that. And like Errol Flynn and the Johnny Depp, those to me are very strong male archetypes in my realm of spirit guides. So I don't know if that's.
Thank you. So I'm going to jump in and answer Laurie's question. So in your case, Laurie, the male archetype that we're talking about is the absent, unobtainable male, and the pain that that has caused you in your life. So the pain of being separate, the pain of being alone, the pain of being rejected by the male. So when I was talking about the foreign energy relating, it's how it relates to your pain and how the male has shown up in your life and been part of the challenges that you have experienced in your life. And then just to sort of talk in general about archetypes, so a male archetype is a masculine archetype, and so there might be some common elements that we might all identify with as authoritarian, masculine, action taker. There can be different, the divine masculine as opposed to the divine feminine. Those would all be male archetypes. And so each of us might have our own specific archetypes depending on what we perceive as being masculine or male, or feminine and female, if we're talking about male and female archetypes. So I hope that helps. Do we have any other questions, Corey? Great.
Yes, we do. See, you knew that before I even answered. Because I was on mute, I had to nod my head, yes. And Callie wants to know, who was your first spirit guide?
The first spirit guide that I was aware of was my guardian angel. And it introduced itself in a poem. And the poem was, I'll see if I can remember it. I trust my intuition. I trust my guiding forces, my angel with the guiding eye of Horus. I touch it. I trust in you to teach me and guide me through the pages. Take me to the stars and no, I trust in you to hang on, I'll have to start again. Let me see. I trust my intuition. I trust my guiding forces, my angel with the guiding eye of Horus. I trust in you to teach me and guide me through the ages, take me to the stars and back and lead me through the pages, something like that. And along with the poem came the image of the eye of Horus. And then along with the image of the eye of Horus came my guardian angel. So that's the first one that I recall. And I was lying in England in a park in the summertime, and the poem and the visual dropped into my awareness. And then I'll give you some other examples of early guides that I worked with. The first time I took healing classes, and again, that was like probably about 25 years ago in the UK, I had a spirit guide that was a deceased doctor. He was a healing guide, and he used to step into my body and move my arms around. Now, I don't do that anymore. You know, I've changed the way I work with guides. I don't allow them to step into my space anymore. But before I knew better, I did used to do that. And so that was an early guide of mine. And who else? There've been so many. I mean, over the years that I've been working with guides, you know, I churn through them pretty regularly. You know, I remember, like, as well, when I was in my clairvoyant training program, which again is about 20 years ago, I had a guy who's called AJ, and he was just like this bendy guy with long arms and legs. And I think he was just because he was very amused, and he helped me keep my energy up because he was amused. And then I had one called Goldie that was this golden energy guide. And these are guides from 20 years ago when I was sort of like just learning. And since then, there've been many, many different guides. And now my main guides, the one I told you about earlier, he's kind of a galactic being that works with sort of advanced light technologies. There's a couple of ascended masters that help me work with when I'm doing DNA healing work. I'm often working with, you know, Jesus, sometimes with Mary. Kuan Yin is a favorite one as well. But, you know, really, I have phases of them. I had one, Hilarion, for a while, and he's after St. Paul was St. Paul, he incarnated as Hilarion before he became an ascended master. So, you know, you name it, I've experienced and communicated with that guide, and probably worked with that guide, or that guide has shown up in a session that I've been doing with somebody. Anyway, I hope that answers your question.
And we have one more from Lori, and this probably be the last question, depending on how long it takes for you to answer it. One last thing. Yesterday, when you saw my spirit guide, would you say the being has a male presence to it?
I don't remember, Laurie. You know, when I'm reading you in a session, I'm in a trance state, and I've set the energy level specifically at your energy so that I can channel your information and reflect it back at you. So usually when I've completed a reading with somebody, I leave their information behind. Imagine if over the years, I've read thousands and thousands of people. Every week, I'm reading, you know, a lot of people. Every day I am. And so if I retained everybody's specific information, that would be so overwhelming. So I go into trance, I set the energy level to be appropriate to deliver information to you. I channel and deliver your information to you. Then I come out of trance, and I'm me with my information. So I really don't remember looking at your guide yesterday at all. And so I'd have to just go in and look at a guide that was your guide right now and see. But I would just also say what Corey said, they are neither male or female. They are genderless, but they will often project themselves to be masculine or feminine. And that is really to help us to connect with them. So if you'd been abused by men, you might be more likely to be shown a more feminine guide, for example, because you might feel more comfortable with that female vibration. Anyway, I have waffled on so long that Corey is telling me I now have to end the show.
It all must end at some point.
Yes, and anyway, I hope that helped you a little bit with that question, Laurie. So listeners, you've been tuning into Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. And we've had a sort of blended show, energy beings, guides, developing your intuition, how not to doubt your intuition, how to trust your intuition. We'll see you next week.
See you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everybody.